Good morning. Will the Committee on Infrastructure, Transportation, and Technology please come to order? It is 9:02 a.m. on Wednesday, June 24, 2026. I would like to welcome Committee Vice Chair Okimoto and Council Members Dos Santos Tam, Tupola, and Wire. We don't have any council members joining us online. Pursuant to Section 92-3.7, the Hawaii Revised Statutes, this meeting will be conducted as a remote meeting by interactive conference technology with the following procedures in effect for the meeting. Members of the public will be allowed to provide oral testimony on all items on the agenda remotely and in person in the council chamber when each item is taken up. As both English and Hawaiian are official languages of the state of Hawaii, pursuant to Article 15, Section 4 of the Hawaii State Constitution and HRS Section 1-13, members of the public may testify in either language. For oral testimonies offered in Olelo, Hawaii, additional time as may be necessary will be allowed for the testifier to provide an English translation of their testimony. Before testifying, each person shall state their name. Each speaker may not have anyone else read their statement and is limited to a 1-minute presentation on each item. All persons who have registered to testify remotely by video conference or phone will be called upon first. When your name is called, please monitor your screen and activate your audio feed when prompted. I will then give persons who have not registered an opportunity to offer testimony. Please utilize the raise hand feature on Zoom to be called upon. For those who are joining us by telephone only, please press *9 to indicate your desire to speak. I will then identify you by the last 3 digits of your phone number. When your phone number is called, please press *6 to unmute yourself when prompted. Some friendly reminders and tips: please video conference from a quiet location if possible. If you are also watching from the proceedings on Olelo, please mute your television at the time you are called to testify. When the timer on the screen reaches 0, please conclude your remarks promptly. Once all the remote testifiers have testified, I will proceed to in-person testimony in the council chamber. Persons who have not registered will be given an opportunity to speak following the oral testimonies of the registered speakers. HRS Section 92-3.7 requires all votes at remote meetings to be conducted by a roll call unless unanimous. Therefore, I will first call for objections, and if there are any, I will call for a roll call vote. For those council members participating from outside of the council chamber, in accordance with HRS Section 92-3.7, the meeting will automatically recess if we lose audiovisual contact with you and cannot reconvene until we re-establish contact. Therefore, please announce beforehand if you will be voluntarily signing out of the meeting. For written testimonies, please, including the testifier's address, email address, and phone number, will be available to the public as described on the posted agenda. As a courtesy, please turn off silence or turn off your cell phones. For our first agenda item, we have action item resolution 26-143, which appoints Luca Cuniberti to serve on the rate commission of the city and county of Honolulu for a term to expire on June 30, 2031. Members will be amending the Be It Finally Resolved clause on page 2 to replace a reference to managing director with managing director designate and make miscellaneous technical and non-substantive amendments. I would like to first allow for the introducer of the resolution as Mr. Cuniberti is a council appointee to Councilmember Wire.
Mahalo, Chair. I appreciate your openness and you scheduling this item, and I think it'll be an amazing discussion, and also grateful for Chair Waters for supporting our youth leadership, and of course, most importantly, Mr. Cuniberti for his willingness to participate in this process and put his name forward and be willing to serve our community. He's been a fierce advocate for transportation across all areas, and still engaging consistently with the department, just on how to improve our bus routes and access to Skyline, and really making transportation more accessible to our community, which I think through, all the discussions we have had in this body, how really vital our public transit system is to just, supporting the quality of life for all of our residents, and how so many rely on it, right? And so I just want to say mahalo, Chair.
Mahalo, Councilmember Wire, and with us from the with us, we have the appointee here. We have Mr. Cuniberti. If you could please introduce yourself, share a few words, and then we'll have a discussion thereafter.
Aloha, good morning, Chair Cordero, Vice Chair Okimoto, and council members. It is such a great honor to be here today as a young person being able to talk to you all about this appointment. For the last year, I have been advocating for and with youth on the exact issues that the Rate Commission works on every day. As the North Shore's inaugural Hawaii Youth Transportation Council representative, as a North Shore Transportation Alternatives board member, as one of the co-founders of Oahu Transit Riders, as a student, as a community member, I have been talking to youth on how transit affects them, what that experience could improve, or how that experience that can improve, and aiding them and getting them in touch with the right people. I believe it is time to bring a youth perspective to the Rate Commission, because public transit affects everyone. Kapuna, workers, low-income, and houseless persons, and keiki youth. We deserve a seat at the table, and I hope that if I'm appointed, I can help give the voices of youth on Oahu a seat at the table. Mahalo for your time and hearing my appointment. If you have any questions for me, feel free to ask away.
Thank you, Mr. Cuniberti. Members, do you have any questions? Councilmember Wire.
Thank you, Chair. And also just wanted to mahalo first Director Morton, who I see present as well, because he's, actually, was brought up the idea as an innovative way to bring youth voices to it. And so a lot of credit to him as well for elevating this discussion. Luca, I wanted to, Mr. Cuniberti, maybe have you just talk through, you have a lot of commitments and responsibilities. And so can you just share a little bit about how you would balance that with your responsibility on the Rate Commission if appointed?
Yeah, so I just graduated high school, and for the last couple years, I've been Hawaii Transportation Council member doing all this volunteer work, and I've also been doing dual enrollment at UH West Oahu for political science and marine biology. So it's definitely been difficult to balance everything out, but I've managed to do it. I think one of the great things about doing all this, I've learned how to balance my time very well, and I'll be going off to college now to Vermont, which of course is very far away. But I've learned how to balance my time, being able to represent my community, being able to represent the communities of Oahu and the youth of Oahu. So I'm very excited.
Appreciate that. And then could you just share a little bit about how you became interested in transportation advocacy?
Yeah, so I have, and looking back at a lot of the photos on my phone, I can definitely tell that I was interested in buses for a long time. On the North Shore, it's a beltway. So it's either you're taking the car or you're taking the bus or you're taking a bike. And I really just enjoyed taking a bus and a bike a lot more because I am legally blind in my right eye. So I can drive, but I'm not really that confident in driving. And being able to be in a bus and just seeing everyone else in a bus, it's almost like it's fun to people watch and see other youth taking it. And I like asking them questions like, how's the bus? How's it been today? Is there anything that I might be able to help you improve? And they're like, oh, you can help me improve the bus? It's like, it's a fun experience, and being able to meet new people, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, appreciate that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Next, we have questions from Councilmember DeSantis Town, then Committee Vice Chair Okimoto, then Councilmember Tupola.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I share that exact experience, and it is fun to talk to people and ask them how we can solve their problems, and I'm glad that you're going to have this chance as a member of our Rate Commission. Chair, just before I ask my one question, I actually had the chance to ride both the bus and rail with Luca a couple weeks ago. We went from town here at the state capitol all the way to Ahua, and then transferred to Skyline. And along the way, we had a great chat about the connection between rail and housing and environmental issues. And I can attest to the fact that Luca understands these connections really well. One of the, you've talked a lot about youth, and I'm very excited that the state has been moving towards more youth fairs. One issue that I really want to be working on is the low-income fare program. What are some of the ways that we can educate people that might qualify to encourage them to actually take advantage of the program to apply and get their low-income card? How can we engage with people better?
Yeah, so at the Hawaii Transportation Council, I was the lead advocate for Keiki Ride Free, which would have implemented, sadly it died, but it would have implemented fare-free universal youth transit for all of Hawaii. And one of the big things is when we were reaching out, it's like, we tried to get as local as possible. Maybe even as local as canvassing, like telling people, like, hey, here's a flyer. This is how you do it. But you really want to get to that community, get to that extremely local level, even putting up flyers in schools or at places where our kapuna might be, or where people are working, like at barbershops, at grocery stores. You just want to get as local as possible. You want to get in the community and tell them there's this opportunity. You should really take advantage of it, especially now.
Thank you. Next, we have Committee Vice Chair Okimoto.
Thank you, Chair. Aloha and good morning, Luca. Thank you so much for being here. I love your energy.
Thank you.
I as a mom of somebody who graduated from high school just the year before you, I kind of understand the requirements that come with being a newly graduated college student. And I wanted to get your understanding of what you see this position to be, how you understand the BIK Commission, and what kind of, I know Councilmember Wire said that you went over and you have this, you have a understanding of what it would take, but in your understanding, what would this require, and how would that affect your ability to do so as you're a student in the East Coast?
Yeah, so I understand it's a 6-hour time difference, but I stand by what I put in the nomination proposal that Councilmember Wire put through. But being there, reaching out to the community, seeing if there's anything that they're having trouble with in terms of fares, being at rate commission meetings, just really making that effort, even though I will be far away. I just want to try and stay as local as I can, even though I will be, a good ways away.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Councilmember Tupola.
Yeah, thank you so much. So nice to meet you. Also love your enthusiasm. I do have a child that graduated 2025 and 2026. So I have these aged children in my home right now. And I do know that the first year of college is really tough. It was really tough for my first daughter. My second daughter's going through it. So my concern is that it's such a unique experience. Going to college, especially going to college on the East Coast, is something that I would love for you to be like all in, right? Be involved, get involved in your student body. I was student body vice president at my college. Like, be a part of the community that you're going to be in on the East Coast. And I'm saying this with all the love and admiration for you. College really was a pivotal part of my life. Being in college, being active in the community that I was a part of really helped me to grow in who I was. My concern is that I feel like you being in college but trying to still be here at the same time could take away from such a cool experience that you could have to be involved. I mean, maybe there's something that's transportation related or even governmental related in the college you're at. And I think it's cool to be a part of this. And there's going to be this opportunity later because you're so young. But my concern, again, is that if you go to college 6 hours away, that definitely you should jump in all in because it's so fun. I mean, I did go to college for school, but I really went to socialize. And it was so fun being a part of different groups and clubs and organizations. And then at the same time, like being able to really, I guess, adapt to different climates, different people. And I don't know about you staying up till 3 a.m. or starting a meeting at midnight and getting out at 3 a.m. I feel for you because I know that there's so much involved that young kids don't know until they first experience college. So I guess my question to you would be, what are your thoughts? I know you're saying like, I'm going to do it, I'm going to get involved. But again, being on the East Coast and trying to interact with bus riders in Hawaii is going to be pretty difficult. What do you think, or have you considered the possibility of us being able to maybe embrace your participation upon graduation, or maybe when you come back to Hawaii so that you can have that additional college experience that you add to your resume as opposed to trying to do both? What is your thoughts on that?
I just want to say thank you for being so invested in my college experience. I'm really excited for it. And a couple years ago when I was first starting to think about college as a freshman, I was kind of like, because I'm born and raised on the North Shore of Oahu. I was like, I want to get out of here. I've been here 18 years. I'm ready to try something new. And in the last year or two, just being so engrossed with all these organizations and these community members, I'm like, I can't see myself not engaging with the community in any way while I'm away. And I'm not gonna be able to ride the bus when I'm in Vermont. No. But one of the great things that I've been able to do with growing my network and talking to people is I know a lot of people that have those daily interactions with bus users. Oahu Transit Riders, as I mentioned very recently, is an organization I'm helping to co-found, which is trying to represent 70,000 daily riders a day, and we're slowly getting that going. And that's, I'm gonna have these avenues where I can engage with people, and I'll be able to engage with neighborhood boards virtually, but I can't see myself not being here in any sense, and I feel like the rate commission is the best way for me to do that.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And definitely when my daughter left and she came back, of course, she missed Hawaii, she missed all the things. But when I was in college and I engaged at that highest level, serving in student government, our student body was 33,000 people. No Hawaii kid had done what I did. Every Hawaii kid was like, holy smokes, how did Andrew do that? I would just hate for you to miss out on a super awesome opportunity for you to represent our state at the college you're at by engaging at the same level with the same enthusiasm, with the same excitement that you're doing right here for maybe a club or even like the whole entire student body of your college. I'm just saying college is a once in a lifetime. It is. I got my master's, my doctorate. It's not the same. Undergrad is where it's at. You're gonna have this experience and never have it again. So with all the love in my heart, I appreciate it. I personally feel like you should fully engage in college and leave this, for a time maybe when you come back, but I definitely appreciate your time in the Youth Commission, your, enthusiasm for wanting to be a part of our community. But as a mother, as someone who knows what this stage feels like in my kids' life, I personally think that you doing college and coming back to this would be my best suggestion for you. But thank you so much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Members, any other questions? Okay, so Mr. Kunberry, sorry. I was wondering, I know that you've engaged with members of the transit community. How have you engaged with the rate commission prior?
Of course, I was here when the fare increase bill came through. One of the big reasons where I did want to come onto the rate commission was it didn't feel entirely transparent. And that's kind of one of the big things that I see a lot as a youth looking at government here in Hawaii. There's the webpage and there's the calendar to go see where meetings are, but they're not always posted and the recordings are sometimes a little late. So in fairness, I have not had that much interaction with the rate commission. I've met rate commissioners independently, but I have not gone to a rate commission meeting. I've looked at the recordings, but it's just because either the commission meetings haven't been posted until maybe the day of or the couple days before. It's difficult to even get involved with it. And I want to help youth be involved with the rate commission and have them have a real voice at the table.
Thank you, Mr. Kunberry. That's actually something that I bring up to other commissions. I think a really good commission to model after that I tell other commissioners, or appointees, I should say, is the Climate Change Commission. They're very active in whether it be different social media forums, and you can find them live, and it's pretty quick. So that's a very fair point. So mahalo. We will go to testimony, and then we'll come back for a discussion. Okay, thank you. Actually, I will call up the city administration. Is there anyone from the city administration that wants to come up? Okay, Director Morton.
Aloha, ITT Committee. Roger Morton, Director of Transportation Services. It's a council appointee, so usually we don't testify for that. But I would say that I've known Luca for the last couple of years. I've found him to be an extraordinary young man, focused on transportation issues. I honestly wasn't aware that he was going to Vermont, but I do think that he has a grasp of the issues that are hard to find, in trying to recruit. As you know, trying to recruit good people for boards and commissions can be a very challenging thing for you or for the administration, in just finding people who are willing to serve, have a passion, and have have a feeling for that. So that's all I could say is I've known this young man for a few years. We've worked together on a few projects where we've intersected, and I've always found him to be very conscientious and very knowledgeable.
Mahalo, Director. Any questions for the Director? Councilmember Tupola.
Hey, aloha, Director. Thank you for being here. I had a quick thought. Just you've heard what I said, and basically, I've been through so many conversations with my kids about what they don't know, because they don't know what they don't know, right? So I have to kind of guide them, still let them make decisions. But what do you think about the possibility of anything that could be done maybe in the summers when he returns? Is there any way that internships or any type of involvement with your department could still be a possibility for him? Because I don't want to lose this enthusiasm, but at the same time, I'm telling you, college is a thing. Like, I want him to be a part of it. So what is your thoughts on maybe his involvement, maybe if he comes home for breaks like summer?
We're always looking for good interns. I can't really commit for, that we have an intern position open. We have 4 positions that are included in our agreement with UH on UPass that we usually hire some students. I don't think that agreement precludes us from using only UH students, although the spirit of it was that we would use UH interns. We've had really good, so I wouldn't have any qualms about doing it. I just can't make a commitment at this point.
Yeah, no, thank you I just wanted to know if there was possibilities for kids in your department, but thank you for sharing. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Tupola. Okay, now we'll continue on with testimony. Thank you, Director. We don't have any registered in-person or online testifiers. Is there anyone else in person or online who wishes to testify? Seeing none, okay, let's see. And I do note there has been testimony submitted as well online for the appointee. Next, we are back in discussion. Members, any discussion? Councilmember Tupola.
Thanks so much, Chair. I kind of said a lot, and I just want to express my deep appreciation for the nominee and for all of what he's done thus far. As far as I'm concerned, I definitely am not going to be supporting this because I do think that it'd be a great opportunity for him to intern, and this opportunity is not lost. You're so young. I do think that there's going to be many more opportunities coming up, and I do hope that this opportunity can actually follow him maybe into getting involved in his college. I think the 6-hour difference is more extreme than most kids know until they get there, as far as like the ability to handle the weight of school, possibly working, getting involved in student body, and then still trying to engage. I mean, my daughter was only 4 hours away from me, and I barely got to talk to her on the phone regularly because she was working and going to school and trying to keep up with her social life. So personally, I feel like for this one, I'm not going to be able to support, but I thank him so much. Really, I do. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Oh, okay, Councilmember, Committee Vice Chair Okimoto, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. I do want to also thank Luca. I love your enthusiasm, and I appreciate you putting yourself out there. As Director Morton said, this is not something that everybody's chomping at the bits to do, and we know that this is a voluntary position. But I do have to agree with the sentiments of Councilmember Tupola. Both she and I have daughters who are 4 hours away, and I have to agree with everything she stated, where it was very challenging. You want your child to embrace everything they can. My daughter worked really, really hard, and I'm not saying you obviously have a lot of capabilities and a lot of potential. I do think that what you have and the skills you have right now are not the best fit for what requires the rate commissioners to do as well as with related time and dedication. But I do hope that you will continue, like you said, you want to come and give back. I think your voice is really important, and you've stated some great things. But I do have to agree that to me, this is a position where it's someone who is here and is focused, and I think it'll detract really from your college experience, and I want you to do the best while you're there and be able to succeed there so that you can bring back here everything that you gain while you're in college and all the experiences that come with it. But I am super thankful that you put yourself out there, again, because this is not something that's paid for, it's voluntary, and the fact that you have the desire to is really commendable, so thank you. But Chair, I have the same concerns and sentiments about his capability to fulfill the duties as well as his his youth age at this time, especially with his college being so far away, the time-wise. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Members, any other discussion? Councilmember Wire.
Thank you, Chair. I think all the, concerns raised are completely legitimate to talk through, and so I totally value the conversation and the ability to flesh it out. I know each of us had a different college experience, and I do think, on that front, it's important that we empower our youth to shape the experience that they want to have, because I think that's the way we can truly unlock the most benefit, not just for them, but for our entire community, right, in terms of providing folks the opportunity to thrive and excel and expand their knowledge, but also to do it in a way that serves the broader community, I think is an amazing opportunity. I think in seeing the testimony from Hawaii Bicycling League and Hawaii Appleseed, of course, other community members and youth in particular, I think is amazing to know that next generation of leaders is already stepping up and at our doorstep and willing to serve and wanting to serve. And just having spent multiple hours with Mr. Kuniberti, sometimes at his nudging even, to just sift through all the different bus routes and the amount of time it takes to get from point A to B to C all the way through Z, how we can redesign some of those routes to meet the needs of the community, to know the many, many, many text threads he's on with, all different stakeholders and advocates in the transportation field. I have not come across someone more passionate about transportation, in my time on the council, aside from maybe, yourself. And I know Councilmember Dos Santos Tam as well is a big advocate. And so I still support the resolution moving forward for those reasons, because I think it's really an opportunity to welcome a different perspective onto a multiple person board that, of course, is a volunteer unpaid position, knowing the challenges we've had and finding folks to fill some of these positions. I think it's an amazing opportunity to have someone that's such a passionate transportation advocate being willing to invest some of that time in serving the community. And so I still would, hope the council has an opportunity to opine on the resolution, but appreciate the dialogue. And of course, again, mahalo to Mr. Kuniberti for his willingness to step forward in this way, on top of the many other ways he's already advanced good policy and transportation across the island and the state.
Thank you very much. Sorry. Councilmember Dos Santos Tam.
Thank you, Chair. As somebody who was born and raised here and had the incredible privilege of going to college on the East Coast, I have a completely different perspective on this. We spend so much time concerned about the participation of young people in our government, and when somebody raises their hand and steps up, we act as if this is a burden to them. And we have, many volunteers who come and want to serve on commissions. They usually just get voted through, no problem. And yet we continue to struggle to find people to serve on boards and commissions. If there's somebody out there that wants to serve on a board and commission, I think we should absolutely let them, and we should encourage them. We also spend a lot of time concerned about the brain drain here. Smart, bright, young people going off to the mainland and not coming back, not thinking about the fact that there's a future for them in Hawaii in their 20s or 30s or 40s. I would have loved to have something that kept me connected to Hawaii, that kept me connected to something I'm really passionate about. And I think that being on the Rate Commission, which, by the way, doesn't meet all that often and doesn't have that much homework. And if it means, zooming in at 11 p.m. East Coast time, I'm very sure the Campus Cafe has a lot of coffee, and Luca will be just fine doing that. I'll close by also providing a little invitation and an offer. I haven't talked with the person that I'm going to not throw under the bus. That's a bad metaphor here. But somebody that has been a little bit of a mentor to me is actually the former mayor of Burlington, Vermont, Miro Weinberger. And I'd be happy to connect you with him, and I'm sure he can give you all kinds of background information on the Green Mountain Transit System in Burlington and all the wonderful things they have there, so you can bring that knowledge back home. So again, I commend you for raising your hand to volunteer. I wish we had more people across the board, but in particular young people willing to do this. And I hope that you'll have great college experience and be willing to stay up for the rate commission meetings. Again, the Campus Cafe, I'm sure, has great coffee.
Hold on, can I make a statement and then I'll allow for questions? Sorry, I didn't get a chance yet. First off, Mr. Cuniberte, thank you so much for being able to be engaged, not just looking to be on the rate commission, but especially throughout your time, throughout your high school years. I know that you have been at numerous meetings, community meetings, and maybe it's because I'm also engaged in it that I have seen that engagement there. I do want to make a statement that it is fair that you both members are bringing up. I do want to allow for the youth voice to be heard at the rate commission. I do think that is an important. I think that is something that is beyond just a missing middle. I think it's something that's just missing in general. I also note that beyond just Mr. Cuniberti's voice, he also is building a community, not just through youth, but people who are transit riders on our island here. And I think it is important important that we allow to highlight that. I do know that as a council appointee, I know my council appointee for Hart actually reports back to me. I ask him questions, always making sure that he's able to go to meetings, but he's always checking in with me. And so maybe that's something that we can impart on to Mr. Cuniberti if this council would support his appointment to the rate commission to ensure that he is being able to handle both his work, but I do think him experiencing a world outside of Oahu also helps us, what do they say? Live globally, think locally, or I don't know what it is, I'm sorry. But I do think it is important that we allow for that youth voice to be highlighted beyond the Youth Commission, the Hawaii Transportation Youth, I'm gonna mess that up, never mind, Alternative Commission, whatever that is. But I do want to say that. I know that we do have further questions. Sorry, Councilmember Wire.
Yeah, no, thank you, Chair. No, I just had a quick question. Because I know...
Sorry, for whom?
For Mr. Cuniberti.
Okay, Mr. Cuniberti? Okay.
Yeah, because I know like all of our community members are, board and commission volunteers have different life factors. I'm sure, folks visit the continent maybe to help take care of ailing parents at times. There's other, spending time with youth or their children away at college. For your case, knowing you're going to be attending school, I just want to double check if you intend to maintain Hawaii residency and if you intend to return to the islands at times during your education and even after.
Yeah, that's a very valid concern. I do intend on keeping Hawaii residency for 18 years. One thing I've been looking forward to most is voting on Oahu in our elections that are coming up. But yeah, I mean, I really want to do this commission. I feel like having this voice for youth in this, for fares in particular, because we're having an affordability crisis in the state, on Oahu, all over our island. It's important that we keep things affordable, and I want to have that voice for youth because I've had so many youth come up to me and be like, hey, I can't afford transit anymore. I can't afford to go see my friends. I can't afford to go to school. And I want to be able to take that, that they're giving me, and put it into this commission. And I do want to come back to Hawaii. I know, Councilmember DeSantos Tam, you were mentioning a brain drain. There is a brain drain, and I really want to be able to come back to Hawaii. And I think having this kind of regular, very thorough meeting with people from Hawaii, from Oahu, with the rate commission, that'll keep me connected to the island. I think if I were not to be doing this, I don't even know if I'd want to come back. I really feel like This is not just the experience of I, but it's the experience of us as, a community, as youth. I hope that answers your question. I went a little off topic. I apologize.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. Okay, members, still back in discussion. I also was thinking, because I have a lot of youth that, and it's not directed to you, but I have a lot of youth in my community that come at me and don't understand government fully. So I really hope that this is an opportunity also for Mr. Cunaberti to learn more about our government processes, about how our departments work, and share that with his peers, as well as being able to just show youth that that there's a world outside of, I guess, what they're focused on as well, because what we decide here at the local level affects and impacts everyone's lives. So with that, I do want to close discussion and then move to the votes. Okay, so the chair recommends that resolution 26, the chair recommends that resolution 26-143 be amended to a CD1 as discussed. Any discussion? Any objections to the CD1? Okay. Any reservations? The resolution has been amended to a CD1. The chair then recommends that resolution 26-143 CD1 be reported out for adoption. Any discussion? Any objections? Okay. Oh, 2 objections. All right. Well, chair will do a roll call vote. We have Councilmember DeSantis Tam.
Aye, enthusiastically.
Vice Chair Okimoto.
No.
Okay. Councilmember Tupola.
Respectfully, no.
Okay. Councilmember Wire.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. That's 3 ayes, 2 noes. The motion carries, and we'll see you at the council, and we look forward to further discussion there as well. Mahalo. Next, we have for action Communication D-38326 from the Department of Design and Construction requesting consideration of dedication document conveying grant of sewer easement 11522 for public use in EVA. We have from the city's Department of Design and Construction, Chief of Land Division, Aaron Sakamoto. Thank you for being here today. I wasn't sure you were going to be here or not, but thank you.
Good morning, Chair Cordero, Vice Chair Okimoto, council members. Aaron Sakamoto with the Department of Design and Construction. We submitted for your consideration, dedication document for a sewer easement at the villages of Kapolei, and we're asking for your approval and acceptance of the dedication document. I'm available to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Members, okay, so we have Councilmember Tupola.
Hey, aloha. Thank you so much for being here. We just had a big town hall about this in my community. Can you, for the public, just share a little bit about this particular one? So is this easement transferring, well, a few questions. One, is this easement transferring all of the sewer capacity to us, or are there other portions? Second question is there any cost associated with this? And if there is that part of the $10 million that the state is promising to the city to assist with in the next 6 such years? Go ahead.
Yes, this is just a single sewer easement. It's not the full capacity. We are working on an additional 9 sewer easements. The roads and drainage are part of a separate master agreement that's memorandum of agreement between the state and the city that's being worked on at a higher level between the state and the city administration.
The second question is, what are the associated costs, if any?
Oh, there's no there are no costs associated with this sewer easement.
So when we get it transferred to us, have we already been paying for this? I mean, as far as like the maintenance of it, or do you think in the future, so we have 1 of 9, right? You're saying this is 1 of 9 easements. My question is, because everyone's question to us is, how is the 10 million going to be spent? Where are you guys putting it? Are we putting some monies into the maintenance of this? If you don't know, I can ask later, but I just thought you might know.
I believe the $10 million, the money that's being set aside is part of the larger master memorandum of agreement, so covering the roads and drainage systems. And I'm not exactly sure if it's specific, if there's any specific funds associated with the sewer easement. I'll have to check into that.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember DePola. That's actually really great that you had a discussion about this in your community. And sorry, I know I was going to ask for other questions, but I do have a follow-up question. Since you did mention, Mr. Sakamoto, about the upcoming 9 possible easements that will come before the council, do we have a timeline for that as well?
We don't have a timeline. We process it as we're given notification that the improvements have been constructed and are acceptable to the Department of Environmental Services. And it's all processed through the Department of Planning and Permitting. So we're working in conjunction with them. And so as the improvements are upgraded or maintained and certified as being up to the city standards, then we prepare all the documentation. So it does take time. So it does go in stages. So we don't really have a timeline for when those additional easements will be ready for your consideration.
Okay, understood. So you are saying when we have had easements come before us, when we had about maybe 6, 8 easements, that would be like completing the rest of the easements that we've already approved then, yes? Like in prior committees, we would have like 4 or 6 easements that would then complete the rest of a project sometimes. And it's just based off of when, I guess it's signed or presented to the city.
We're reasonable to have the easements grouped together. We do process them in batches, but in certain instances, like the single easement is ready to go and the others are not at that point yet. So we do submit it for your consideration.
Okay,
so it does depend.
And then I noticed that on the Notary Public, but also the documents, that on January 6, 2022 was when the council approved the grant of easement for this particular easement that we're looking to approve and accept. And so I was wondering, is that the normal time frame between maybe a span of 4 years between when we do the grant of approval of easement before we then actually accept the easement?
It varies. It depends on, like I said, there's many different steps involved. And so we're at the very tail end. We're processing the actual document and getting it recorded. So all of that, we're at the very end with all the documentation has to be prepared. And at that point, then we're able to submit. So it does take time. It does vary depending on each project and each dedication. So it could be 4 years, it could be less, it could be longer, it just depends.
Okay, thank you. And for this particular sewer easement at 11522, do we know how many properties or units that it will support or impact?
I'm sorry, I would not know exactly what section or how many properties would be affected. It is part of the larger sewer system.
Course.
So for that village is a couple A. So I don't know that there's a specific number that would be attributed to just a single easement.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Members, do you have any other questions for Chief Sakamoto? Okay, thank you very much. We are now going to testimony. There are no registered in-person or online testifiers. Is there anyone online or in-person who wishes to testify? Okay, seeing none. Members, we're back in discussion. Okay, actually, I do have a question. This is something I've been thinking about because I know I've been meeting with like area people in Halava who I know the Honolulu, no, that's, oh, hold on, I don't know if I should bring that up, but like that project will affect like up until a good part of my district, and I was wondering if there's any concerns about capacity when it relates to granting easements or approving easements to the rest of our sewer capacity, if you happen to know that. I know that question might be more for ENV, though.
Yeah, I'm not aware that there are any capacity issues. It would be
Okay.
something that environmental services would be
Yeah.
best to answer.
Okay, understood.
Okay,
Thank you. Okay, all right. Any other questions for this? Okay, seeing none. Members, we're back in discussion. Okay. The chair recommends that the document requesting approval and acceptance of the grant conveying easement for public use in EVA, transmitted by Communication D-38326, be reported out for council approval. Any discussion? Any objections? Any reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Moving forward to action item number 3, we have resolution 26-149, approving the grant of perpetual subsurface easements within portions of the Kahe Point Beach Park, EVA, Hawaii tax map key number 19-2049001 for underground fiber optic submarine cable purposes in connection with the planned expansion of its telecommunications infrastructure on a parcel of land adjacent to the Hawaii Key Cable Landing Station identified as tax map key number 19-2-051001. With us from the city administration, I think we have, oh, okay, yes, please. Paula Younglee?
Yes, ma'am. Good morning,
Yes.
Chair Cordero, Vice Chair Okamoto, council members. My name is Paula Youngling, and I am the Purchasing and Contracts Administrator for the Division of Purchasing with the Department of Budget and Fiscal Services. Director Kawana could not be here today, so he asked me to attend to discuss resolution number 26-149, and that is for the grant of a relating to Hawaii's submarine cables request for 3 perpetual subsurface easements within the portions of Kahe Point Beach Park for a total easement fee of $72,500 based on an appraisal completed by the Department of Design and Construction. The easements are designated as easements 1, 2, and 3 on the documents that we provided with the resolution. And it is for Hawaii's expansion of their telecommunications infrastructure on the land adjacent to their cable landing station across from the beach park. The project itself is going to consist of 3 horizontally directionally drilled bore pipes extending for about 600 to 100 feet below the ground surface and west under the beach park into the Pacific Ocean. And it's not anticipated to affect operations of the beach park. So I'm here available to answer any questions that you may have.
Members, do you have any questions? Councilmember Tupola.
Hi, aloha, thank you for being here. No specific questions. I will just note that I have been out there. I've met with the company. I've actually had questions, and those questions have been answered. They've done presentations to the neighborhood board. They do have a cultural consultant. So not for you, but for the general public, there has been quite a bit of due diligence leading up to this. So I think you again, and basically the small little partnership we have in order to make this move forward. I appreciate it. It is in my district. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Committee Vice Chair Okimoto.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. Really quick question, and I'm not sure if I missed it or not, but can you explain which department gets the fee? Where does the fee go to?
I'm sorry?
Which department will get the fee?
The fee, it will go to the Department of Environmental Services. I'm sorry, for Enterprise Services. I'm sorry, the Department of Parks and Recreation.
Parks and Recreation. Okay,
My
thank you very
apologies.
much. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. That is good to note. In the resolution, it states that it's the easement to HSC, which is Hawaii, how do you say it? Hawaii Key, thank you. HSC for a one-time fee of $72,500. So that's a great follow-up question. Members, are there any other questions for this? For the administration? Seeing none, we are now going to testimony. We don't have any registered in-person or online testifiers for this item, but is there anyone online or in person who wishes to testify? Seeing none, members, we're back in discussion for this item. Thank you, Ms. Younglin, for being here. The chair recommends that Resolution 26-149 be reported out for adoption. Any discussion? Any objections? Any reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Next action item, we have Bill 41, 2026, addressing vehicles and transportation devices. I would like to first allow for the introducer, one of the introducers of the bill to go first before we take up the city administration. Councilmember DeSantos Tam.
Thank you, Chair. As we know, e-bikes and other mobility devices have been proliferating, which is a good thing. We want people to have transportation options. What's a bad thing is when people are riding these devices in unsafe ways, when drivers don't know what to expect from the people on these devices, and when the people on these devices are speeding and just doing crazy things. And we see this each and every day. And probably every day there's a headline about some young person who gets injured on one of these devices. The state legislature passed HB 2021 this legislative session, and so this bill conforms our ROH provisions to what's in the state law. And the important part of that is that allows us to do better enforcement, because now the city law, if this passes, would be in line with the state law. There's no ambiguity about where these devices should be, who needs to wear a helmet, who is ultimately responsible if there's an issue here. And I'm glad that we're able to move quickly on this, given that the state legislature just passed this. The governor is expected to sign HB 2021 fairly soon. We at the city need to be ready to move on this because it's a big issue in the community. So thanks for hearing this bill.
Thank you, members. We will now call upon Director Morton from the City Administration.
Aloha, Chair Cordero, Vice Chair Okimoto. My name is Roger Morton, Director of Transportation Services. As Councilmember Dos Santos Tam indicated, most of this appears to be just reconciling city ordinance with pending state legislation. It has not been signed by the governor yet. We do hope that the governor signs it. Last year, there was a little hiccup, and the bill did not get signed. Having said that, we still have some technical issues that, and some of the more substantive issues that we find some inconsistencies between ordinance and the state law. We are still conferring within our department, and we're still conferring with Corporation Counsel. I don't think these are roadblocks at all. But I think that I would be back after second reading to and by that point I would have had an opportunity to really make sure that we understand the technical issues, some of them involving riding e-bikes on sidewalks. Some of them referring to the definitions of some of the devices. For example, bicycle in another portion was also e-bikes were defined as low-power e-bikes were defined as bicycles. And we just want the opportunity to do a full deep dive into the legislation. And we do support the legislation's intent, and we will support it at this point.
Mahalo, and thank you for sharing that you will work with the introducers and council when you said second reading, when it comes back after second reading, or for second reading. Thank you. For second committee. Okay, so members, do we have any questions for the city administration? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Director. We will now take up testimony. We don't have registered online testifiers. Was there anyone online who wishes to testify? Seeing none, we will now go to in-person testifiers. In-person testifiers, we have Hawaii Bicycling League. We have Travis Council, and who's present. Thank you very much.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Travis Council, Executive Director of Hawaii Bicycling League. I want to echo much of what Director Morton just said about the bill. We've been a part of this process for the past several years, including a working group at the city, and then, of course, the state legislature in the past 2 years. And want to thank Tyler Dos Santos Tam for introducing this and bringing our definitions at the city level up. We do have some clarifying points I put in my testimony, and I'm more than happy to work with the introducer on providing those for a future bill. But we're certainly supportive of this effort and happy to answer any questions or work with the council in the future.
Thank you very much. Members, are there any questions for the testifier? Seeing none. Okay, is there anyone else in person who wishes to testify? Anyone else in person? Okay, seeing none, we're closing testimony. Members, we're back in discussion. Back in discussion? No. Okay. All right, members, I appreciate the discussion both from the director as well as from testimony from Hawaii Bicycling League to continue this conversation forward, to look forward to further amendments as it comes back to committee. I keep mixing up council and committee here. I will now make the recommendation. The chair recommends that Bill 41, 2026 be reported out for passage on second reading and scheduling of a public hearing. Any discussion? Any objections? Any reservations? Hearing none. So moving forward to not action item, informational briefing, agenda item number 5. We have the update on the BIKI Bike Share program. Joining us in the council chamber, our Director of the Department of Transportation Services, Director Morton, as well as Executive Director of the Office of Climate Change, Sustainability, and Resiliency, Dr. Kealoha Fox. Director Morton will be providing a brief presentation on the update of the BIKI Bike Share program that is available online. It's not yet on the HNL docs, but it is on Departmental Communication 423, 2026 on the docs, but not on the agenda itself. So you got to go Departmental Communications, click Departmental Communication 423, okay? With that, I'll leave it up to Director Morton and Dr. Fox.
Thank you, Chair Cordero, members of the committee. I will go through for the record, my name is Roger Morton, Director of Transportation Services. We're here to talk today about our BIKI system. As you know, there's been there's been a high media interest in it. There have been some issues, some problems that have done, and the department has worked to try to come up with a good going forward strategy. Just as a summary of what our position is that BIKI really does remain a critical mobility asset, but the reality is it has also faced financial and fleet challenges, and we're pursuing a strategy focused on fleet restoration, transit integration, and long-term sustainability. Next slide, please. Help is coming. I think we're back a little bit. Okay, so as we all know, BIKI was launched in 2017, and at that point, it had approximately 1,000 bicycles. The startup of BIKI was facilitated by a $1 million grant from the city and another $1 million grant from the state. Over the years, the number of bicycles in the system expanded by roughly 300 more bicycles, with bicycles purchased by the city. And at that point, pre-COVID, BIKI became one of the most successful bike share systems in the United States. Unfortunately, the landscape for bike share in Hawaii and for most other places has changed. Originally, governance was provided by a nonprofit entity that would be Bike Share Hawaii, and Bike Share was supported by through memberships, grants, and corporate sponsorships. And during the pandemic, ridership went to essentially zero during the height of it, and so some of the corporate sponsorships dried up. ANA was one of the top sponsors. Without any tourists coming to Hawaii, it probably didn't make good sense for them to continue to support. In any case, the challenges to the nonprofit meant that they no longer could sustain themselves as a nonprofit. And so they ceased operation, and the city assumed the governance of the BIKI system. Now, our role was largely of permitting BIKI locations and not as an operator. Next one, please. Now, challenges for BIKI, as I mentioned, the large corporate sponsorships have dried up. The pandemic impact continuing with the only half of our Asian tourists returning to Hawaii. Certainly, rising insurance has been a cost for almost everybody in the state on many, many fronts. There was a growing need for capital, but at the same time, the private sector operator, was not generating enough cash. It was actually negative cash flow, and so the corporation could not provide capital expansion for a losing operation. As I said, this is very, very similar to what's happened on many systems on the mainland. Next slide, please. On the mainland, some of the mega cities like New York and Chicago have had more luck in sustaining corporate sponsorships. New York's City Bike system is a prime sponsor is Citibank, and they provide substantial support to the operation. City Bike is the largest in the United States. It has over 30,000 bicycles. There's other cities too, like Chicago, where Blue Cross has been a major contributor. The same is not true in Hawaii, although at least from the pandemic, it hasn't been true, and neither the nonprofit nor others have been able to find corporate sponsors. Next slide. Just taking a look at how BIKESHARE is operated across the continent. As I mentioned, New York has an operation that's in the hundreds of millions of dollars per year, and actually receives virtually no support from the city of New York. The operation can operate and be sustained. Same is not true in our nation's capital in Washington, where Capital BIKESHARE is an important part of their system. But they do receive substantial public support. Same is true in Chicago, Boston, Montreal, Los Angeles. And in Honolulu at this point, apart from the purchase of 300 bikes and the $1 million of seed money, we have not supported BIKI up until this point. Next slide, please. Our role is limited. We stepped in to oversee and preserve the system. We didn't hire any additional staff or provide any additional resources. No new operating funding was appropriated for this next year. And we continue to provide oversight, monthly meetings, review of financials with Secure BIKESHARE. Next slide. That gets to who operates BIKI today. BIKI is not operated by the city. Secure BIKESHARE Hawaii performs day-to-day operations. They manage maintenance, customer service, and system operations. They have shareholders and a board of directors, and the company runs to make a profit. DTS serves as a public sector partner. In a BIKESHARE system, this is where most of the money goes. Our system is about this size. And so most of the money goes to contract operations, that's bike redistribution, maintenance, station services, management and administration, technology, software, insurance, rent, utilities, and BIKI station replacement reserves. So that is roughly the scale of what our existing BIKI operation is. I believe in the last few years. It's been diminished, but this is what it was a few years ago. Next slide. So why does BIKI matter to the city? Well, number one, it does provide an affordable mobility option for residents. It supports resident and visitor travel, gives another activity for our visitors to do. It helps reduce congestion and emissions, and it complements the bus and Skyline as a last-minute service to and from transit. Next slide. Our current challenges are pretty obvious and have been pointed out in the public. There's been a lot of fleet attribution and vandalism. There's been deferred capital replacement. Operating costs have gone up. We've lost the nonprofit. We have a need for some kind of sustainable funding, and the private operator, understandably, will not operate for indefinitely with a negative cash flow. The fleet decline. Next slide, please. The fleet decline has been a reduction of bicycles from the peak of 1,300 to about 595 bicycles today. Frankly, without a sufficient number of bicycles, BIKI is not viable as a reliable source, and that's really hurt the operation. Has been the lack of bicycles. Next slide. So, what's DTS's strategy? Number one, to restore bicycle inventory. Number two, to increase ridership and revenue. Number three, to improve customer experiences. And number four, to improve connection to transit. So for fiscal year 26, next slide, please. The council had previously allocated $1 million from the Climate Sustainability Resiliency Fund, and that money is available to essentially help us buy more bicycles. We intend to buy 600 more bicycles to bring the number of bicycles up to about 1,100, which according to our operators are sufficient quantity to be viable and to actually make a better operating revenue. They suffer from revenue because they don't have enough bicycles. And that has been the biggest problem for BIKI at this point. Is the biggest priority is to restore the number of bicycles. So our focus on that is long-term sustainability. This is not a this is a higher priority for us and for Secure than it would be any type of direct financial support. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, the plan would have us immediately buy 600 more bicycles. That would those would end up being, the city would own those bicycles, as we did for the other 300. The bicycles, with the lead times for buying bicycles, it's about a 6-month lead time from the time a solid commitment order was given to the bicycle manufacturer. For fiscal year 27, what we are proposing with CCSR is to allocate $500,000 of climate resiliency money, subject to council approval, and the funding would be dedicated to O&M. And we'd use some of that for growth of the system in the Kalihi area. That's the next area of expansion for us. Next slide. We have also, we're going to one more slide, please. We're also exploring the opportunity for some federal funding to support the system. Federal rules are a little complicated, but they will not support O&M costs, but they will support purchase of equipment such as bicycles or docks. Now, if we buy the 600 bicycles, our operator believes that the bicycle situation will be good for many years, for several years, before any other purchase of bicycles. But our docks are in very bad shape, and there is a need for dock replacement and dock repair or rehabilitation. And that is something that is eligible for federal funding. It's something that we have listed in the TIP, and it's a process that we would go forward to try to do a 80% funding for new BIKI equipment. In future years, the support is dependent upon availability of funds. Our main goal at this point is to reach a point where user fares can hopefully support O&M as user fares did in the pre-COVID days, and to look at continued incremental funding equipment as needed. Next slide, please. BIKI is just one mobility mode, and it's not necessarily the only one. Other bike shares or bicycle rental providers may be viable in different markets. We might think North Shore or Kailua or other parts of Oahu. A future expansion could include Central Honolulu, Kailua, and North Shore, and different communities may have different business models and equipment. So our future opportunities should be evaluated through competitive procurement. The goal is to expand mobility choice, not exclusively for any one single operator. Looking a little bit deeper, next slide please, into the future, we look to integrate BIKI with our HOLO system to provide better last mile connections. And that would be something to the effect of that a transit user who was a regular transit user with a monthly transit use might be provided 15 minutes of BIKI ride time as part of their transit fare. That would be a future. Next slide, please. We're also exploring a city employee mobility pilot program. If we do provide support to secure bike share, we want something in return. And I think the good opportunity would be to provide some ability of city workers to use BIKI for errands and for other things around town. One more slide. So our key message is BIKI is a community mobility asset operated by Secure Bike Share Hawaii. The DTS has stepped in only to provide oversight and strategic support. Now our goal is to stabilize, strengthen, and sustain the system. And I'm happy to answer questions from any of the members.
Okay, thank you. Before I go to the members, Director, if you could share, I know you use some acronyms and percentages in one of your slides relating to the docking rehabilitations and upgrades or updates. You mentioned that request is in the tip. If you could share that, and you said 80%, and I don't know exactly what 80% you referred to.
So what we have proposed in the TIP, that's the Transportation Improvement Program, which is a roadmap that the Oahu Metropolitan Planning Organization develops. And any federal grant must be included in the TIP. The TIP is a combination of city council members, state legislators, Senate and House members, and several executive members of agencies such as myself and Director Sniffen. But that process has already taken place. What I would like to see would be a program maybe in the $500,000 range, and 80% of that would be federal funds, $100,000 would be city funds as part of an equipment restoration going forward. That's you're answering your first question there.
Okay, understood. Thank you. I see what you're trying to say. Okay, that makes sense. Thank you. Members, we can go to questions. Councilmember Chipola.
Aloha, thank you again for your presentation. A few questions, and maybe some of this was covered prior, but is there any type of metrics, surveys, or data that we can see about like maybe the most utilized areas? So is that available on your website?
It's not on the website, but it's information we could provide to you.
Yeah, that'd be great. I mean, I think anything moving forward with future investment needs to kind of show us what the past usage was, what things we've seen work and not work, because I do think that this is going to be difficult, especially if we can't analyze the whys. So why did we lose so many bikes? Where were the bikes lost? What were the processes to recover them? Did we pursue any of those processes? Because in the future, I would imagine that we will face the same hardship. So I think identifying the problems of what didn't work, I mean, I appreciate the whole story of it. Why didn't it work? Why, how did we try to address it not working? And granted, we weren't even involved in the why didn't it work. So we'd have to kind of study or ask the prior group that was maintaining it what their feedback was so that we can, I guess, move forward appropriately without just falling into the same disrepair.
Sure, I can answer a couple of those questions now, I think. The last check we did, I think 62% of the ridership was local ridership, and the balance was visitor ridership. Now, visitor fares are set higher than local fares, and there are some local breaks that local people get. And I can get more detailed information on your other question. As to the reason why bicycles went into, a single individual was responsible for destroying over 100 bikes. A person was incarcerated several times. Obviously, there was mental issues involved, but that, and the episode, going through, I mean, we offered lifetime BIKI riding privileges, but it was to no avail, and some of that was very unfortunate. Others have been, bikes do wear out, and sometimes they wear out, and other bikes are used to scavenge for parts. Parts have been hard to get. We didn't get into the tariff issues yet, but tariffs on Canadian-produced bicycles and parts, or Chinese parts, have been a new issue too. So all of those have been issues that we have studied, and we did go through a deep dive into BIKI's finances to basically get to verify that they were underwater and that they were operating at a deficit. I would be happy to share that information with you as well.
With the amount of bikes that you guys are proposing to purchase, and then I guess with the number that the fleet would get up to, have you guys already calculated what the cost will be moving forward to either maintain it or try to keep the fleet at the, because what you're saying is some fell into disrepair. I'm guessing that there was no funds set aside to kind of consistently keep up with repair of the bike. So what does the operations and maintenance look like moving forward on an annual basis?
Well, for us, the first step, as I said, there was some unusual things that caused fleet to decline as much as it did that were probably beyond anybody's control. But going forward, my objective is to provide more bicycles so that the system can earn more revenue and can earn enough revenue to make sure they keep a good state of repair on the bicycles and to do that. Now, is this a gamble? And the answer is it's a calculated risk for sure, but it is where we are at this point in time. And that's, we do think that with the injection of new bicycles, that revenue, we know it will increase. I can't tell you exactly how much it will increase. Part of it is dependent upon how well we market it, how well the operator markets the system, and many other parts of it like that. But you can be sure that we're motivated to try to make it work.
So your answer is basically saying that you're hoping more bikes will equal more revenue, and then that will cover operating and maintenance, and basically, possibly, without other further injections, that will kind of maybe net zero, so we don't have to inject more into operations and maintenance?
We are, we did not include any operating funds in the FY '27 budget. We are proposing to use $500,000 from the Climate Resiliency Fund, subject to council approval. And I can't say that that support would be zero. If we were zero, we would be tied with New York City only. Because other cities normally provide some level of support. It varies from a very small amount to a very large amount, but it would be unusual. We have a lot of good things going that make it possible in here. One of them is that we're a tourist town, and that that when they have enough bicycles, the visitors do like to do it, and we make more money from the visitors, or at least the Cure makes more money from the visitors than they do from our local residents. So it's calculated. It is certainly much more cost effective to provide integration with transit, because it is cheaper than a bus ride as a last mile solution. So it is, looking at the long-term future of the city, trying to be a sustainable city with a good, lots of mobility options for people. This is not a particularly high cost mode compared to, rail or bus.
Yeah, thank you so much, Director. Thank you, Chair, for the time.
Thank you so much. We have Committee Vice Chair Okimoto and Councilmember DeSantos Tan.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Director Morton. On your slide where it had the current challenges, it did mention the loss of nonprofit sponsors, and I think that was also stated earlier in the presentation. Have you guys had efforts into looking for other nonprofit sponsors? What has been the success or experience with that?
I agree that we should be doing that. While we were having an incomplete BIKI system without enough buses to make the real system viable, I just don't think that we would be successful in finding a corporate sponsor. Going forward, if we can get BIKI back to where it's viable, absolutely. We should be out there looking at the airlines. We should be out there looking at the healthcare companies. Those are the kinds of entities that have supported BIKESHARE in other cities, have been, that. We do suffer in Hawaii with a lack of head offices for big corporations, right? So it's been a struggle for us in a way that's not a struggle in some other cities like San Francisco or New York or Chicago or Boston. But it is an issue here. We've had great relationships in the past. There were some of our sponsors that finally dropped out because they were the last man standing. And that's what we do have a need to go back and to try to get more sponsors.
And when do you remember or anticipate these sponsors? You said the decline started where you had just a few. Was that during COVID, or what was the reason for the decline of the corporate sponsors or nonprofit sponsors?
Certainly it was during COVID when the sponsorships really started drying up. As I say, one of them was ANA, and they were not flying any visitors to Hawaii at the time. Hawaii Pacific Health was the last one. But the utilities, when times are tough too, the first thing that a corporation would cut would be its sponsorship. So we went through some tough times economically, and corporations had to do what made sense to them at the time. But I do think there's opportunity for sponsorship in the future.
But currently we're not seeking it. We haven't been seeking.
Not actively, no.
Not actively, okay. And is there a plan? What's the plan or projection to start doing that again?
Again, we're looking to hopefully inject 600 bikes into our system this fiscal year. Maybe in the best case would be January, February of 27. And until we can get enough assets in the network, then we would not be, I mean, I get complaints all the time, about the lack of bicycles, that I went one way, but when I came back, I couldn't find a bike.
Right. I saw news stories about that. And I think that's my concern, is that the same concerns that these outside sponsors would have, I think I have for us using city funds, because you haven't been able to have a positive cash flow. So let's say we inject, or we use our city funds to then get your fleet up. But what processes, or what's going to happen to ensure that what we're investing in will then be safe? We're down to, you're trying to get 600 bikes because we went from 1,300 to less than 600. My concern is that we're going to invest a large amounts of money, but not have the security of, one, will this be successful? Two, how can we secure the investments that we're using our funds for?
Yes, I understand your concern, and Civil Beat had one of their reporters express the same there. At the same time, the media, has editorially said that this is worth doing. So there are certainly, that is the question: is this a good investment for the public to make? We're not in the business to make money. But my goal would be that we would at least be sustainable and not have it as a money pit.
That's also, I understand that we're not here to be profitable, but yeah, right now, if we're negative, have we ever been able to, when was the last time we were able to break even? Has this ever been able to do that?
Yes, it was profit making up until about 2022, I believe.
Okay, really quick question. And you mentioned the 62% local ridership and the rest of 38% tourists or visitors. What are the rates? I personally don't ride BIKI because I don't utilize that down here. But can you tell me what the rates are?
The rate structure is, there's monthly passes, there's 30-minute rides, there's 60-minute rides. I can send that to you in detail. We did raise the rates about the same time the city took over, and it might have actually backfired on us because there's only you can only raise rates so much before you start killing demand, and that I think is that there really is no margin for making more money by raising rates because it will just chase demand down.
But the goal is, if I heard you state correctly, the goal is to have more of the outside users because they're paying it at a higher rate than the local users. And where have the vandalized bikes or the lost or damaged bikes, is that, you mentioned one gentleman or one person who was responsible for 100, but are trying to understand where most of the damage and disrepair is coming from. Is it from overuse of or misuse of tourists because they're not sure how to use it, or locals, or is it just random people that are walking by and damaging and stealing the bikes?
Yeah, vandalism has been pretty concentrated to one person, one very large, strong person capable of actually bending a bike frame.
Oh.
So it is pretty spectacular how this one individual, I know there's representatives here who have that detail on the back of their hand, and perhaps during the public commentary, if they want to come up, they could answer those questions to provide the detail.
But in the docks that you said we also have to, I guess, either replace or repair, are they secure in there? So in the future, if we're going to invest in more bikes, I want to make sure that we're securing them.
Well, the plan for us would be to look toward federal funding immediately to rehabilitate the docks, both the communication functions, and they've needed it for a long time, regardless of vandalism. They just, they can be repaired, I've been told by the operator. It's not an easy task. It's you pick them up by crane, you take them to a shop. It's not an easy thing, but it's something that they recognize is required. And I guess my model going forward is to try to get BIKI to be sustainable and as much as possible break even on the O&M side, because we have federal access for the equipment side.
Thank you. Really quick question, Chair, last one. So these list of other cities that have, you listed here, and they have similar or identical programs that the BIKI does for here?
Each one is a little different. You know, you can range from New York, which is very, very little support, but tremendous ridership all over the boroughs, to Los Angeles, which is highly subsidized and has been made part of the metro transit system.
Okay. Thank you, Director. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Committee Vice Chair Okimoto. Councilmember Dos Santos Tam.
Thank you. I just have a few sort of logistical questions. So often when we approve IPDT permits for new towers and things like that, there's often a trigger for a bike share station to be installed, perhaps, and actually in the case of, I think, the Hilton Hawaiian Village, a number of passes to be provided to employees. If the city decides not to, continue funding BIKI or something like that, what happens to those legally binding conditions of approval?
It's not a question of if we don't support them, they will cease operation. And then there is a logistical challenge that they will have of removing their assets from our streets and to do that. So it is something that they have an obligation to do as far as their legal obligation for passes and things like that. That's an issue that they would have to determine. It's not an issue that the city would be involved in.
I think I raise that because if BIKI were to cease operations and we have these legally binding obligations on developers and things like that, we may have to go back and amend the agreements that we have, those unilateral agreements that we have with the developers. There's several of them, actually. I think I've counted, 5 in the last 2 years where installing a bike share station or providing passes has been a condition of approval. So in addition to that, we do have these conditions for new projects coming up. Is there a way to talk with these developers and say, hey, this is a condition of your future project, but would you consider installing these, purchasing them on behalf of the city, and then installing them sooner, even before your project is underway?
That's an excellent suggestion. We, the unilateral agreements are administered by DPP, not by us. But we do get to, on any of them through the one-time review, we often put in requests for DPP to consider to negotiate with potential developers.
Yeah, I think it's a worthwhile endeavor. Many of these, it's prior to submittal of a building permit application, they need to have some kind of agreement. Well, we should probably start doing that earlier rather than later. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Dos Santos Tam. Director Morton, I do have more questions as well. Well, first off, thank you for also bringing up that you will be seeking federal funding, and of course, through the, it was the, Dr. Fox, help me with this, or Director Morton, what was the fund that we're utilizing to the $1 million that's left for this fiscal year or the rest of the year, calendar year?
Yes, thank you, Committee Chair Cordero, Carol Fox for CCSR for the record. Yes, so the Climate Resiliency Fund, we have 2 appropriations for fiscal year 26. It was appropriated through council. Thank you for your support for $1 million out of Resolution 25-221. And then we still have an appropriation request in the CCSR budget through the executive operating budget through FY27 for the $500,000 that would be in addition to that 1 million. So in total, it would be the 1.5.
Okay, understood. Thank you. And next up for Director Morton. Speaking of the docking stations that I asked earlier, and I know that this will have to come through discussions with Secure and the rest of, I guess, how BIKI operates, but are there any lessons learned from how the docking stations are, since the beginning of its operations, even from even before COVID? I'm sure there's newer forms of how bikes are docked, any new technology that will maybe assist with the upgrades or assist with any theft. Are we looking at those methods as well?
In our review, at least from Honolulu's perspective, we think the docks help us to sort of specify where bicycles are returned. There are non-docked bike shares available, but if you go to cities, and I'm sure you've all gone to the cities where they're all over the streetscape, and we don't really want to have a system where these bicycles become blocking sidewalks and other things like that. So the docks, from our perspective, are carefully chosen as to where the location will be so that we can help manage the sidewalk space for the vehicles. That's why it doesn't preclude us, and at some point we might want to go forward with a dockless bicycle, but probably not in downtown Honolulu or Waikiki. It might be other parts of the island where that might make more sense.
Thank you. Thank you for that distinction. I think the docks do help with looking at the app and finding out how many bikes are available. But I guess with the dock replacement needed or necessary, are we looking at any upgraded or updated types of docks so that sealing the bikes or like taking the bikes out would be more difficult to do? Are there any new technology that we're looking at?
That's a question for us and BIKI and BIKESHARE, Secure Bike Share together.
That's a good point.
Obviously, I'd like to see GPS on all the bicycles. They're not there right now. I'd also, going into the future, many cities have found that e-bikes are an attractive option. Seattle is almost entirely e-bike. Lots of hills in Seattle, so pedal bikes sometimes are not looked upon as favorably as e-bikes. But so yes, we're going to, if we go down this path and we find a good sustainable way for bike share, we're open to all technology. At this point, our objective is to try to make our existing system stable.
Understood. And actually, good point. I really should be looking out to hearing from Secure and BIKI since, the city, I mean, we have a role, but we aren't making those types of distinct decisions as well. But with that in mind, does that mean the city is not the one seeking sponsorships? That we passed a sponsorship bill that I sponsored, that I introduced, and I would like to see DTS utilize it. However, thank you for bringing it up. Thanks for reminding me. So if it's Secure and BIKI, are they the ones having to look for the sponsorships and not the city? So I'm just trying to understand.
Up until now, most of the sponsorships, that was the purpose for the nonprofit really, was to have more agility than the city would have been able to provide both governance and also going out into the community seeking it. But I would commit to the city should have a role in doing that. And I might want to leverage members of the council and the mayor and others to help me out on that quest. But I do think that that we should have a role.
Okay. And speaking of how we're the city, and then this brings up my thoughts about the 15 minutes use of time after getting off a bus and rail, and then utilizing whether it be the Holo card or any other membership card that will allot for 15 minutes grace period time to utilize BIKI after getting off Skyline or the city bus. I was wondering, that means will the city have to then pay BIKI or Secure for that allotted 15-minute time grace period?
Well, we have a contract that we've negotiated with Secure, and you know, in that contract, we are providing funding for more bikes and for those things. And so, yeah, I expect to get something in return for that, whether that be some form of transit integration or some form. But yeah, I mean, to the extent we do that, it would be in return for city funding.
Okay, understood. So, wait, can you actually, actually I don't understand. Wait, so we would have to pay them for the 15 minutes grace period? Yes or no?
The proposal we have already is that we would subsidize them. $500,000, $1 million to buy bikes. And so to the extent we do that, we think that we should get some services for that.
Okay, thank you. And then how will that show up on the actual Holo or membership pass system, whether it be on the app or however we have the BIKI membership?
We have funding to upgrade our Holo system. We call it Holo version 2, Holo V2. And that's a much larger program, but a small part of that program would be to try to integrate the BIKI back office system to our Holo back office system so that we could facilitate some of those aspirational things through technology. Up until right now, it's more of a workaround for us. It's not a clean system until we can figure out how to integrate technologically.
Okay, thank you. Members, are there any other questions? I will go, if you do have any questions that you think of, we can go back into discussion, but we'll take testimony first. Thank you, Director Morton. Thank you, Dr. Fox, for being here to present on this. It's something that I've really wanted to hear in our committee for a while now. So hopefully, actually, some of the great points that Councilmember DePola brought up, whether it be information from Secure or BIKI with the data would be another great follow-up conversation that we can have here in committee if the members are open. Hopefully the members are open to that with the data that was brought up and requested. So thank you. Next, we'll go to testimony. We don't have any registered online or in-person testifiers, but is there anyone in person who wishes to testify? We have from Hawaii Bicycling League, Travis Council.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. I want to just thank DTS for their report and largely say mahalo to DTS and the city for finding ways to support this vital transportation system. Hawaii Bicycling League has been a supporter of the system since it launched in 2017 and even before that during feasibility studies. I do want to just remind the committee that BIKI has been very successful. As Director Morton noted, it was the 6th most popular system in the nation pre-COVID. And certainly systems do require reinvestment, not only the expectation of the fares to cover the cost of the operations, but there are not many systems out there that fares cover reinvestment. So the purchasing of more equipment or expanding of a system. And also just a reminder that our public transportation systems do require public investment. Our city supports well over $400 million of investment into our public systems every year. And the investment into a successful bike share system is very minor in comparison. So I do just want to thank you for the continued support, not only through the climate resiliency funding, but the broader efforts to support this system. So thank you.
Mahalo. Is there anyone else in person who wishes to testify? Okay, seeing none, we do have a hand raised on line. If I could ask you to please press star, hold up. Star 6 to unmute yourself. We have last 3 digits, 175. 175. Please proceed. State your name for the record.
Yes, good morning. Tim Gary calling in on testifying on this. First of all, I'd like to state it's ironic that the name of the BIKI program is called Secure BIKI program when we've lost half the bikes or more than. This is a case, if I was teaching economics in school, of sunk cost and also total mismanagement. If I had my druthers, I'd rather take the money that we're spending and grant it to private business to operate a system that could actually manage the program. I find so many people with stolen bikes. We've heard about the destruction of bikes. This is a total case test on sunk fallacy. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gary, and that was Tim Gary for the record. Is there anyone else online who wishes to testify? Seeing none, members, we are back in discussion. Any other questions for the presenters from the city administration? Okay. Once again, if you want more information, hopefully this is not this better not be the last discussion that we have. Whether we have not operators, but Secure as well as BIKI, in addition to the city, so that we could find out more information and data that was requested and brought up. That is a fair request and actually something that would help in future discussions, but also our discussion right now to kind of fill in the pukas a little bit. That would be great to have. So I don't know who I got to reach out to at Secure, or me or my staff got to reach out to at Secure or BIKI, but hopefully Director Morton, Dr. Fox, you can help with that. Yeah, but okay. So if there being no further discussion or questions, there's no other items. This meeting is adjourned at 10:49.